Hi, welcome to another episode of Piccadilly Talks. I'm Angelique Virtue, your host. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of work and education. And to have that conversation with me, I have two guests. My first guest is Annabelle Graham, and she's a sixth form teacher, as well as part of the Professional Services Unit at the Mona School of Business at the University of the West Indies. With her today is banker and senior adjunct lecturer at UWI, Mr. Dwayney Paul. Good day to both of you.
Good day.
Good day, thanks for having me.
I am happy to have you, Dwayney and Annabelle. And I am pleased that you could join me to have this conversation.
Thanks for having us.
When we have these conversations on Piccadilly Talks, we want to talk about education and its attendant issues, the matters around this important field that inform and address the situation or current situations, yes? And when we think about the future of work and education, it's almost as if you feel as if you don't know where to start because the future of work and education is so broad.
Yes.
I'll start with you, Annabelle. When I was younger, the channels that were available to me were so clearly defined.
Right.
Even as I felt like I could be anything I wanted to be and go anywhere I wanted to go, it still had this kind of definition and this kind of trajectory that I feel no longer exists. As an educator,
Right.
how is that translating in the classroom? How are students demonstrating that kind of difference?
Thank you, Angelique. First of all, I myself can talk about when I used to go to school because I teach at the sixth form level. So in high school, for me, it was clear. You come to school, that Annabelle, what do you want to be? I want to be a lawyer today, a doctor tomorrow, and that's the path that you'd go on. In the high school, in the sixth form, in 2023, that's a completely different conversation. Students are more aware. They have more access to information. For us, in my class, I'll tell them about encyclopedias and they look at me. Miss what? Encyclopedia.
The other day, my nephew saw CDs and said, you used to listen, that's what you used to listen to music to before? And I was like, what do you mean before? And why do you not know that those are called CDs?
Right?
Because computers don't even have
No,
those
you go in
anymore.
a car, you can use a CD or because it does have a CD player. So a lot of things in terms of how we educate, how we engage our students is very, very different. They look at me and say, Miss, back in your time. And
You
I
feel
look-
some type of way.
Yeah, I was like, back in my time, I'm not a dinosaur. So, we're close in age. How is it that, how would you do certain things, Miss? In terms of technology, Miss, do you have Wi-Fi? You step in a classroom, Miss, is there Wi-Fi in the classroom? How are we supposed to take notes? So everything about education is different. And it just continues to evolve. So when we look at
The future.
the future of work, when we look at education in the future, it's now a little bit or a lot more technical, especially with the issue of AI and generative AI. So that's a whole nother conversation as it relates to even the ethics of it. And students are smart. They're very smart. So it's a lot for us as educators to deal with right now.
I want to come back to that to talk about how we believe our local systems are preparing our educators to respond to the changes, especially with the buzzword of AI and machine learning. But I want to bring in Dwayney here, especially considering your banking and accounting background, almost 2 decades as both a lecturer and as a banker. It's the same similar question though, but as it relates to financial literacy and how students think about earning a living is so much different than the way we were taught to think about earning a living. From your perspective, what are some of those significant differences? The same question between how we think about what we should do to be able to make a money, make a living versus the students you're encountering today.
Good. So I think the first thing is, as a lecturer, I tend to meet the students where they are. So I try not to stigmatize a generation and say Gen Z is bad or good versus boomers versus Gen X. So that's where I start. If you meet them where they are, the discussion evolves into a productive one where they are interested in learning how to probably earn additional income while coming to school. The conversation moves from, okay, I don't have to be in a 9 to 5 to actually earn. You know, the emergence of social media, the fact that information is no longer asymmetric, we're able to see how other people are earning, whether be it through, some people call it digital marketing, affiliate marketing, that's where they are. So to convince somebody in the Gen Z category that, hey, I'm going to pay you X and you come and sit 9 to 5, you know, with these restrictions as you work, that's not very convincing. We have to meet them where they are. So there is...
I have to interrupt you.
No problem.
I have to interrupt you, Mr. Dwayney Paul, Senior Adjunct Lecturer. What do you mean that it is not enough to give the persons emerging from university job offers requiring them to be physically at a desk from 9 to 5 to earn X, and you cannot? There's a clause that says, you know about the other employment. Well, you must like give of your time, and like it was even above business hours or some strange phenomenon. And you're saying that's not cutting it anymore.
You know, one of the good examples, you know, everybody reads memes and they are on social media. A supervisor asks, you know, a young Gen X or Gen Z rather, to bring me 50 pages of printing paper. And instead of counting 50, they ran it through the photocopier to count the 50. And then the supervisor said, but these paper, they're warm. They're like, I'm not counting 50. That's a waste of time. You know, that's a good segue into where we are when we think about the hybrid way where we work. Work is no longer a physical place, and you have to admit, unless you can tie a correlation with efficiency to being in the office physically, then you have to meet these students where they are.
Mr. Dwayney Paul, it is your demeanor while dropping the gems is problematic for me, because you said several things that we must repeat for emphasis for the employers in the back. Work is no longer a place.
No longer a physical place.
No longer.
So first, because Mr. Paul has come with violence today on Piccadilly Talks, and so he's throwing daggers, shooting shots, and we're going to facilitate it today because we're very excited. Good violence. Work is no longer a physical place. From your perspective, and Annabelle agrees, you're an educator, you're seeing the students as they are getting their education, and you're saying the children we're giving to the workforce no longer see work as a physical place. Work is what I do. And because of the world I live in, I can do it wherever I choose. And then you said after that, unless you can tie productivity to the physical place that you may want me to be in, then it is not going to compute.
It's not.
Because the emerging worker will say, all of what you've asked me to do in that place, I can do in this place, and maybe even with greater efficiency. So you cannot persuade me to come to that place.
No, can't.
So unless you're a customer-facing employee and is required to see customers between XX hours, that's a different conversation. But once you're in a stewardship function or you're in a shared service function that doesn't really require you to see customer, the conversation is different. Employers have to be having that different conversation today.
What there are employers who are not willing to have that conversation, Annabelle. They believe that this is the way it's always been done. I have seen efficiencies this way. You cannot persuade me otherwise. It doesn't matter that the COVID pandemic happened and we were all at home and the world did not collapse and dissolve into the universe. Even though we saw that, it's time for you to come back to work. And we're not prepared. Work from home is no longer a policy because COVID has ended. It has ended. Those employees, if you could say what they run the risk of when they take that position, what would you say?
The risk of that approach is that you're turning back a lot of qualified employees. I'm happy that you mentioned the big C, because before COVID, a lot of employers could not fathom the thoughts of having their employees working from home. because you are not there for me to see you, and if you're not in my space, that means productivity levels will drop. Granted, it has fallen a bit, but there are organizations, there are employees who thrived during COVID, and I'm now straddling both as an educator and also in my current role at Mona School of Business. Before COVID, all our classes were face-to-face. Yes, we did well, but during COVID, we had to pivot. And immediately, COVID was March 4th, we had to go online immediately because we have our clients to satisfy. And during that period, we realized that the reach that we had, it was significant in terms of even productivity from our end. It spiked. And
Productivity spiked.
it spiked because there's also, you know, good and bad, because when you're at home, there's no 8:30 to 4:30. It's sometimes you're working until 1 o'clock. It's sometimes you're getting up 5 o'clock, I have this to do. But at the end of the day, it's still something that we can do. It's something that we can continue. And when I look at my students, my sixth form students, telling them to go in our office is a no-no. It's like, so we're preparing you for these roles. Like, Miss, no, we're not going to do that. Right now, they're finding it hard to come back into the classroom.
Oh, wow.
It's like, why do we have to come? Why can't we go on Zoom? So it's
yes, it's a difficult line to
transition,
straddle.
right?
Dwayney Paul, Mr. Dwayney Paul, sir. when we think about you sending out students to be employed, however, they have to negotiate that is something else that their future employers have to take on. But how do you prepare students for jobs that may not yet exist? Because that is how quickly, our times are moving. One, and two, it is in the creation that we're finding persons thriving. It's not persons who go into an existing structure. It's the creators.
Yes.
All of a sudden, they've been saying that they were superior. You remember back then when creators were like, people look down the nose, and now the creators are over here like, we told you.
Yes.
We told you it
It's
was the
looking down
people
on
who
us.
could make things, the people who took things out of their minds, and it was before you.
The skilled workers.
How do you prepare students for jobs that may not yet exist?
So I think as a lecturer, you have to recognize that you're not just teaching technical skills, but behavioral competencies are what you need to focus on. So if you're instilling curiosity in students about how things work, how things are produced, and how you reach from point A to point B, that's a different conversation. If you think about the world of work, what is required is creativity, digital literacy. You're thinking about data literacy, you're thinking about collaboration, and you're thinking about just how you work in a setting that is facilitating strategic thinking. So if you embed this in the conversation, imagine teaching accounting and just focusing on just preparing a balance sheet. You have to bring the conversation to, if you had a small business, this is what it would look like. These are the challenges that you face as a small business owner, and this is how you navigate it. So you're teaching that curiosity, you're encouraging it, you're bringing it out, and then these competencies will be applied once they're in the workplace, for sure.
I think what I'm hearing Dwayney say, Annabelle, is that the core subject matter, which is, whether you're teaching accounts or, physics or chemistry, math or whatever it could be, literature, history, is that the child is able to grasp that because they have so many other ways to get that information.
Yes.
So
Yes.
no, the teacher in the school
Yes.
must teach soft
Soft
skills.
skills.
Yes.
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 That was not the
Yes.
that's different.
Very,
That's different
very
because
different.
the bastions of knowledge, were the textbooks and the teachers.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That has shifted. The student is now able to access that knowledge. I know what I'm doing. I know what I have. I know what I need to get. I can do the certification online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now teachers, educators are teaching children how to relate, how to communicate well with their peers,
Yes.
with their managers, how to empathize.
How to empathize, how to be respectful to others' opinions, and teaching itself looks different. before COVID and going virtual and AI and everything else, teaching was, for a lot of high school students, it was dictation. So you come to class and you read from a book and they take notes. No, teaching for me, preparing a lesson plan is very different. I have to now include TikTok videos. And so YouTube videos was not a thing, it's TikTok videos because that's what they relate to. It's hard, it's so easy for them to get distracted. It's so easy, so you have to now learn how to grasp their attention, how to apply the information so they can understand it. And a lot of persons, it's hard. It's hard for some persons, especially when they're transitioning. So I know Dwayney has, you know, a lot on his plate because when they leave me, they go to him. So they're leaving the sixth form level, getting used to certain tools in the classroom, and then when they go to the university level, they're expecting the same thing. And now you're asking them to think critically, because at my level, we are now preparing you to go to the university level, while Dwayney is now preparing you to go to the world of work. So it's now a collaborative effort as it relates to the high school and the university.
The university. In the last minute with you, Mr. Senior Lecturer in money things, for a child who has great ambition in this world, and for the parent who has great dreams for the child, and for the educator who wants to see that child win, in a nutshell, how should they approach their education and their thoughts about the world of work?
Yeah, so fulfilling that curiosity involves not only the educator helping the student, but parents should take a more involved role, even at the university level. There's no need to say, okay, you're no longer at the high school, so I don't need to talk to the lecturer, I don't need to talk to the teacher. You need to know what the transition has been like for your child, moving from the sixth form level, coming into university, or the fifth form level. That has been difficult for many. The first semester or the first year see many flunking or even just an average performance. But we have shifted the conversation from just talking about traditional roles and professional roles. We're now in the era where being a creator, thinking like a creator, or being, you know, involved in creative thinking work earns just as much or more than the traditional roles. So that's where the conversation is, and I'm pleased that we're there, because these students, they have a lot to provide for the world.
Well, I'm hearing buzzwords like collaboration and respect, but also that creating is that vehicle and that avenue to take us into a future, into spaces that we do not yet see, but that we're confident that we can take on. Thank you so much, Dwayney Paul and Annabelle Graham, for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, that's the time we have for this episode. I'm Angelique Virtue. Walk good.